Hi, this is Mike Furchess and my wife Mary Jane Furchess with the Movie Guys here at you, coming at you through the courtesy of Sharker Studio and Wichita Teen View Magazine. Doing another episode. We've got two good movies to talk about this week.
Yep, we do.
Last week we had one good movie and one that wasn't so good. But this week I think we've got two good movies to talk about. One of them's going to be a lot of fun. I do want to give warning before we go into that second book club review. We'll give warning that there would be a parental advisory there for small children, or that some of the content in that review may be a little bit offensive to some, and you'll see why when we get there. First of all, though, a movie that we've both heard a lot about,
Yep.
Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, Kyle's back there behind the camera, and he told me that he's more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. Say it out loud, Kyle, is that correct?
I'm not going to say nothing.
And don't edit that out. I actually kind of like both stories, and I remember, both of us remember Star Wars when it first came out. I think that we actually stood in the long lines to see Star Wars. Back in the day, they didn't have these multiplexes. This is for all you younger viewers that are out there watching. Back in the day when Mary Jane and I were younger, heck, when Mary Jane was younger, they used a candle for...
No.
I'm just kidding. Back when we were younger, they didn't have the multiplexes. They just had a theater that were usually in these towns.
One theater.
And if you're lucky, if you're in a big city, they might have two or three.
Yep.
I think Johnson City had two. And at one time, they went to three before they went to the multiplex. But they might have one theater, and it would show up, and it would show it on the screen at that theater. And depending upon how many people came to see it, it might be held over. And so if it was really good, it would be held over. And Star Wars was one of those movies, for me, outside of Walking Tall, it was a movie that was held over, in some places, over a year. And lines were fairly long. And we saw it really, really early in its play time. And we're talking a number of years ago now. And I always thought it was kind of weird to start off with, episode 3, episode 4, and then episode 5 or something like that. And I always wondered what happened to 1, 2, or 3. And for the longest time, we heard from George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, that if that was it, he wasn't going to do any more. And that brings me to another category, and that is that Disney ended up buying the franchise. And one of the things that I heard from a ton of people on this particular movie, was people ripping it and have ripped the series since Disney took it over. I don't get it.
I don't either.
Disney over the years has historically made many, many epic films, from their animation on up to some of their feature films. And on this particular one that focuses on the life of Han Solo, that's kind of a background story of Han Solo and Chewbacca, George Lucas was one of the writers for the movie. So we're going back to the creator of the Star Wars legacy, and Lucas, who actually is a writer for this particular movie, which is directed by one of the great directors, from years ago. Mary Jane and I used to watch him when he was little Opie Taylor. Ron Howard is in the movie, or not in the movie, but he directs the movie. I think he does a fantastic job.
Yep.
And for those that have followed the Howard family legacy, there's even a little cameo by Clint Howard. And Clint's this goofy-looking little actor. It's hard to believe he's Ron Howard's brother, but he's been in a ton of movies as a character actor. There's a little clip of him in there.
He seems to always show up in Ron's movie somewhere.
Yeah, he always, or be rated horror movies or something of that nature. But Solo, my expectation, I'd heard a bunch of people ripping on the movie, saying it wasn't any good, it didn't follow the tradition, that Disney did it. I heard nothing. I heard 75% negative and maybe 25% good on this movie before we went to see it. So I went in with low expectations. What about you? You probably didn't hear any of those expectations.
I didn't hear any of those expectations because I don't get in with all that.
You don't listen to critics or reviewers?
I don't listen to critics or reviewers.
What are you doing this with me for?
I don't know, because I'm married to you and you're forcing me to, I guess. I don't know. But I didn't know that the reviews would have been bad on it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was just as good as the other Star Wars movies. I mean, it had all the action, the fights with the spaceships and what do you call those little...
X-Fighters or
X-Wings and the Millennium Falcon. I liked the way it developed the story of how Han Solo accrued that spaceship.
Yeah, we see that story. It's really a background story of the whole series to some extent with Solo. We see the origins of Chewbacca. We see so many things. Lando Calrissian, I think Lando is played by Donald Glover, who, by the way, is not related to Danny Glover, to dispel the myths and the rumors. He is no relation to Danny Glover, but Donald Glover plays Lando Calrissian. I think that everyone does a great job, and I think, for me, one of the things that gave the movie credibility that some people need to be thinking about, it has the blessing and endorsement of Harrison Ford. And that says something about the movie, that this iconic figure that will go down in history as a character like Rhett Butler or someone like that.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it immensely. Thought they did a great job. The action sequences were really good. The acting, I thought, was really good. I thought the actor, to take on such an iconic role, Alden, I can't say his last name, Aaron Reich, I think he did a great job playing Han Solo.
He did. I thought Woody Harrelson did a good
Yeah,
job.
Woody
in it.
Harrelson's in it as Becker. And great story, great storyline. It's long, but I was never bored one time in the movie.
I wasn't either.
And thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's a movie that I would recommend, especially if you're into the Star Wars legacy. I think you'll enjoy it. I've talked to a number of friends that are also reviewers from Washington State and some in Canada over the last day or so that saw the movie, and they really enjoyed it as well. And so I would recommend it. I thought it was really good.
I liked it even when it had some of the fight scenes or action scenes getting ready to start or something. Then they would sort of chime in with that da 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 da, da Star Wars
The John
theme.
Williams tune, yeah.
Yeah, would just sort of chime in, and I thought that I liked that.
Well, one of the prevailing themes is a theme that I like to be displayed in the movies as well, and that is, who do you trust? You know, how far do you go in trusting people? How do you decide who to trust, not to trust? What happens when people take advantage of you that you maybe thought were going to be your friends? We live in a world that it seems like Facebook and other media forums have really, I hate to use the word, but they've bastardized the concept of the word friend. And we see those themes played out in the movie, and I think it's done quite well. Some really good messages. It's kind of ironic that Han Solo early on always saw himself as a bad guy, but in reality he's not a bad guy, and they point that out. No, you're not a bad guy, you're just a guy that sometimes does bad things, but you do it for good reasons. So good things in the movie, great film, I'd highly recommend it.
Fun movie.
Yeah, fun. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I'd give it 8.5.
8.5. I'd tad bit lower. I'd go with an 8. It's not a great movie. It's not the best of the Star Wars. I still like the first three. I like the first one better than any of them.
Yeah, me too.
But I really like. I did like this one maybe as well, if not better, than any of the reboots up to this point. And part of the reason for that is I love Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And to get to see the background of Chewbacca and how Han Solo and Chewbacca came together, just that part of the storyline made it worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd give it an 8. You'd give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I liked it better than the last Star Wars.
I think
Rogue One.
I know I liked it
Yeah.
better than that one myself.
Yeah.
So that's Star Wars, Han Solo, a Star Wars story, again directed by Ron Howard. Some great actors, a great cast. Woody Harrelson plays a great supporting role in the movie, and it's just a good movie all the way around.
Yeah.
So highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed it. When you
Go
go to
see
see
it.
it, I'd go check it out. It's going to be in theaters for a while, I think. So this is Mike and Mary Jane Purchase. We'll be taking a break. We'll get back with you shortly here on The Movie Guys. Mike and Mary Jane back with you here with The Movie Guys. Just want to remind you can find out more about The Movie Guys by liking and subscribing to our page at YouTube. That's Wichita Movie Guys. Or at Facebook, you can stay on top of everything, www.facebook.com/Wichita Movie Guys. Got a movie that, this is going to be a fun one, called The Book Club. A little bit of background. I had no desire to see this movie. None. Zilch. Nada. Zero. None. And I'm at this church up in a little town north of Wichita, Kansas called Newton here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in there, and the band I play with, we're playing there on a Sunday morning, one of the bands I play with, and this little elderly, frail lady to my left. There's another gentleman next to me, and right next to her is this little frail lady. I'm assuming is his mother or something. The guy's like 60-something, so this little lady, she's got to be like 80 or somewhere in there. And we're just talking, and she leans over and she says, she says to one of her friends, she says, "I saw this great movie the other day." And her friend says, "What was it?" She said, "Book Club." And I said, "I do movie reviews." I said, "Tell me what you thought about movies." "Oh, you do movie reviews?" I said, "Yeah, I do movie reviews." I said, what did you think about it? I've heard about it. She says, oh, it's wonderful. She says it's about this book club of these little ladies that get together, and they have a book club, and they read a book, and then they talk about it. And then the book that they read is 50 Shades of Grey. And it's so funny. There's a little bit of sexual innuendo in it, but it's funny. And so I thought, well, my wife likes chick flicks. This is a chick flick. And I'm not trying to be derogatory or anything. So I thought, I need to take Mary Jane to see this movie. I told this little lady, I said, I need to take my wife. She likes movies like that. The Book Club. Now, this movie stars Diane Keaton, Jane Fonda, Candice Bergen, Mary Steenburgen, Andy Garcia, Craig T. Nelson, Don Johnson, Alicia Silverstone, Ed Begley Jr., and Richard Dreyfuss. You could say that the cast is star-studded. And it is, I don't know how many Academy Awards and how many Academy Award nominees are in that cast. And a lot of times in a movie like this, they'll make a movie like this, and they shortchange the actors and the character. They don't here. Imagine these ladies, anywhere from their 70, 71, 72, on up to, I think, 82 is one of the characters in the movie is 82. The Candice Bergen character, I think she's 80. And they read this book, 50 Shades of Grey. Now, if you don't know anything about the book, I reviewed the movie and had people unfriend me because I reviewed 50 Shades of Grey when it first came out. It is a story about an individual who was sexually abused, and he is perverted in his sexual tendencies. I don't know of any other way to say it. And it's really about him coming to grips with his past and his abuse and the relationship that he develops with the female character. And so what happens in this movie, and a little bit of a warning here, is that these ladies, some who are married, some who are divorced, read this book, and to say the least, some of them get really turned on from reading the book. And they decide to become a little promiscuous, if you will, to check out the men and see if the how can I say it, Mary Jane? If the rose still blooms or whatever.
I don't know.
And so they decide to get together, and they go out and they start trying to have relationships with men, not in a filthy or a dirty way, but just to see if that part of their life and desire is still there.
Yeah, I think well, you have 4 women from 4 different backgrounds. You have Jane Fonda plays Vivian, who is a wealthy,
Very
sort of
wealthy.
socialite who's never gotten married because she doesn't want to be tied down. She doesn't want to have a permanent relationship, but she is like a female gigolo. She has sex with anybody, all these men, but she is detached from relationships. Then you have Diane Keaton, whose husband passed away about a year or so ago. You have Candice Bergen, who is divorced. Her husband left her
For a very
young woman, and she's a judge. She's a very professional person. Mary Steenburgen is married to Craig T. Nelson, and they're still married, and she's just trying to rekindle the romance.
Yeah.
He's always too busy to do anything.
And when Mary Jane says, do anything, I guess this is a good lead-in. The little blue pill. Mary Jane, have you ever given me any little blue pills?
No,
You sure you've never given me little blue pills?
not the kind that they have in that movie.
These are actually Tylenol and painkillers, but they are blue like another famous little blue pill. I wanted to bring these to kind of shock Mary Jane. But one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a movie, and I don't know how long, Mary Steenburgen decides to try to encourage her husband in a medicinal way, and they get put over by the cops after she gave him 3 little blue pills. And the
In
cop,
his beer.
Yeah, and the cop has him get out, and it's pretty funny. So there's that kind of humor. There's definitely adult humor in the story, but it's more than my faith is important. Okay, I don't expect everybody to hold on to my faith, and you kind of probably are wondering now that I bring out blue pills and use them as a visual illustration. But there's this taboo subject of sex, and it's like people that are so critical of 50 Shades of Grey when they don't even know that the story's about a kid that's been abused from the time he was a small child, and he's trying to understand the appropriateness of sexuality. And so many Christians and people of faith, we make sex a taboo subject, and our kids would hate to see this video because their mom and dad are talking about sex as a result of the movie. But it's a part of your life that in reality is going to be a part of your life probably until you die. The desires don't go away, but how we handle those desires, how we handle those conflicts, I think the movie illustrates those things beautifully. And one thing I want to say, I want to get off my chest here. A lot of people have criticized me for seeing this movie. And usually the illustration goes back to Jane Fonda and how dare that I would support that traitor. People, get over it. Get over it, especially people of faith. She's a great actress. It's a great movie, and you can boycott and all you want to with her or whatever you want to, but then there's a lot of other actors. But there's some important themes in this particular movie that people need to see, because there are people that are hurting. The sex drive, the desire between a man and a husband for many relationships doesn't exist. And so the movie does an exploration into why those things don't exist, how you kind of rekindle the fire in the movie in an appropriate way at times, and at other times in an inappropriate way. I think the Mary Steenburgen story for a married couple is a beautiful story, and Craig T. Nelson, he does such a great job in that role.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your thoughts?
Well, I think that's right. I think whoever wrote the story, I don't know who wrote the story.
Written and directed by Bill Holderman.
Well, to use women from 4 different categories, which basically hits the majority of women, unless you're a gay person, touches on the problems that each woman individually is confronted with, or how she feels about herself now that she's in her golden years, so to speak. And Diane Keaton, I really liked her character. Her daughters were overbearing. They were ready to put her in a nursing home, and she said, "I've got more living to do, so leave me alone. Let me do what I want to."
Yeah. A lot of great storylines from a man's perspective, from a female perspective. I was the only guy in the theater. That's only happened to me twice. It happened with Mamma Mia. I'm at the theater, and there was a good number of folks there. I'm the only dude there. There's one time that one scene is taking place, and the women in the movie are saying something about men, and I really do want to stand up and yell amen to get the other women to cheer me on or something, but that didn't happen. But very well movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's not a perfect movie. I would say I'm very surprised. I'm going to give this movie the review and the rating I do. I'd give it a 9. Very enjoyable. It accomplishes the purpose of what it sets out to do.
I agree. I would give it a 9. It's very enjoyable. It's funny. It's very candid at times, but it's very honest, I think, in the approach.
No matter who you are, no matter how old you are, there are people to love you. The sexual drive, the desires that we have, I think are intended between 2 people who love each other, a man and a woman preferably. But no matter how old you are, God's placed that desire in your heart. Don't be ashamed of it. So check it out. Now, I will say this as we close out today's program. Please remember, when you go to the theater, turn off the cell phone. Your right to be on a cell phone does not negate the right of the others in the theater to enjoy the movie. So until next time, we want to say thank you for tuning in. 2 movies we highly recommend this weekend. Solo, a Star Wars story, and surprisingly so, Book Club, which is great even for the dudes. Man, take your wife, your girlfriend to see the movie and enjoy it. Thanks again for watching. Mike Purchase and my wife,
Mary Jane.
Until next time, God bless and enjoy the movie.